Time to talk NFL draft and the transfer portal with the Florida State Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you to the everydayers that make this a great show. Truly appreciate you tuning in and making this your first listen each and every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcast for free and on YouTube, part of the awesome Locked On Network, your team each and every day. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Here's the show in a nutshell. This is going to be a rundown with the NFL draft, getting ready to get started this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun for football fans, players from Florida State all over the place. 10 plus players could go in the draft. There's guys that are going to be fighting for free agent contracts. This has a lot of implications that I'll talk about overall. But if nothing else, looking at it from a futuristic standpoint at Florida State, if you're into the recruiting and all that, yes, before anybody asks, and please feel free to ask more questions on YouTube, wherever you want to get into the subject on positions, however you want to do it, the draft will help Florida State recruit in the class of 25, 6, and 7. The more guys you get drafted, the better promotion it is. You can send out all the flyers, send all the texts you want. Nothing speaks to recruits like seeing players get drafted highly out of a school over and over again. It will benefit Norvell and the Noles very, very much. So we're also going to talk about the transfer portal. I'm going to gloss over something a little bit today because I'm waiting on a little more information before I dig too deep, waiting on a couple key pieces. But here's just an example of how wild the transfer portal is, and then we'll dig directly into the draft. There's a guy that just got in the portal named Christian Miller. He played at Georgia. Big defensive tackle, played at one of the top programs, Cedar Grove in the Atlanta area. It's a program Florida State and everybody else in the South recruits. He's a kid that at 285 in high school was literally playing some outside linebacker, and I'm not exaggerating. He's been playing D tackle and nose guard for Georgia. He's not getting the starting nod. He's moving on. I think it would be wise for Florida State to take a look, but I don't know if they will. I had no idea Christian was going to get in the portal. Gregarious personality, really fun guy to be around, and quite honestly, just a person that enjoys getting after it in general. Loves football, loves training, loves doing all the things, coaching up younger guys, and I think he would fit in well at Florida State because the culture fits him and vice versa. So those are the kind of guys you just don't know when they're going to get in the portal, and FSU definitely does want a defensive tackle if they can get one. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to come, and I don't know what his interests are. I just heard about him going to the portal right before I came onto this show, so not exactly a lot of time to prepare. It was like literally 5 minutes before I hit record, but that's the portal in general. It is wild. And unless you're just around some of these kids, it's not like high school or junior college recruiting where we're seeing them at camps and combines and all that. It's just they put their name in. Sometimes we'll get a heads up, but not always. The portal is completely random for a lot of us. And to be honest with you, it makes it kind of fun too. So just something to think about. On Friday's show, we'll talk a little bit more in specifics, but it's definitely going to be a bigger focus than it is today because it's time to talk NFL draft. I'm going to give my thoughts on several of the players going to into the draft, maybe not all of them, but most of the guys, and just what I think, what I've heard, and why I think they can contribute at the National Football League level. Just going to have some fun with the draft because Florida State spring is now wrapped up and we're kind of moving on to recruiting, which will really get going in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to start off with the top, talk about Jordan Travis. Why should a team not just take a chance on him, but what does he bring to the table short-term and long-term? These are my opinions. I don't care about the scouting numbers. I know that he's probably going to go at the 5th round at the best, coming off the leg injury, etc. But here's what I do know. These are just the numbers. But think about him as a player in 2020 compared to 2024. Night and day. Between that time frame, he literally went to Norvell and asked to move to receiver. And now he's going to be potentially drafted as a quarterback into the NFL. That is about as rare as it gets. I remember telling one of my buddies one time after I saw Florida State play a game, I don't remember which one it was, I'm like, this kid's not a quarterback. He just doesn't read the field well enough. It took forever, and he's the exception to the rule, but he has improved so much. And here are his numbers for his senior year. 207 to 324, 63.9%. And keep in mind, Florida State took a lot of downfield shots to Johnny. And they certainly threw a ton of them to Keon, Ja'Kai Douglas, etc. They threw the ball all over the place, and they still hit 63.9%. He also had 2,756 yards, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So a 10-to-1 ratio in the Power 5. That's tremendous. He also was a guy that would take off and run when he needed to, and he would also extend plays to provide a little more time for somebody like Jaheim or whoever it is, Trey Benson, somebody to get open in the flat and make a play. I think that's a guy I would take a shot on in the 7th round if I needed a quarterback. Maybe he's a guy who holds a clipboard his whole career. I don't know. But he went from 0 to 60 in his career. I didn't think he had a chance in college. Then he becomes not only good at it, it was great. To me, that's the kind of guy that I'm looking at it from an NFL scout's perspective. I know he put in the work because he was just not a good quarterback 4 years ago. He just flat wasn't. But he changed from a guy that was just a runner that threw the ball with a big arm to a guy that could kill you with his arm, even if he didn't run an entire quarter. That is literally the rarest of the rare. It just hardly ever happens like that. So I think he should be rewarded and somebody should take it. Will they? I don't know. Quarterback draft is really weird. Where they're projected means very little because teams are very fickle about quarterbacks, the perception that goes with it, etc. So I really don't know if he'll get drafted or not. I'm just saying that I think that he should. There's a great chance he goes undrafted. Quarterback, especially in the latter rounds, is just completely random. So keep that in mind. The other guy that I want to talk about, because I knew him a little bit when he was at UCF, is Tatum Bethune. Now, I don't think he's an every down player in the NFL like DeWoche, who I'll talk about in a minute. I think Bethune is a guy that you can use situationally, and you can use him against teams like against the Dolphins. He would be a good fit because if you're playing against the Dolphins, obviously they got a ton of speed. Good blitzer, big hitter, and somebody that's used to playing against a lot of speed. He's from Miami Central. He knows the deal. I would be surprised if he ends up being an every down guy, but as a nickel or dime, he could be pretty effective, and he's definitely a guy on special teams that could be a kickoff guy in a heartbeat. There's a reason that, teams want the length and all that. I get it. Tatum Bethune's a pretty darn good football player, and he helped Florida State go undefeated last year as a starting inside linebacker. He's good. He should be rewarded in some capacity. I don't know if he'll get drafted, but I think he's a really good player. Last person before we go into break I want to talk about is another one you're probably really interested in, and that's Jared Verse. I've seen him ranked anywhere from 5th to 20th in the draft. I think he'll go somewhere between 10 and 14. That's my projection, but I think he should go in the top 10. I just don't think he necessarily will, and here's why. He's only about 6'3.5". That measurement doesn't fit what every team wants. Perception, perception, perception. The NFL draft is about promoting your program and selling tickets and selling to the masses that you're headed in the right direction, even if your NFL team is garbage. It's just true. Verse, if it's 6'5.25", he'd go in the top 4 in the draft. 100% believe that. He's 6'3.5". And you say, Brian, that's just over an inch difference. It's millions of miles. NFL teams are weird about this stuff, kind of like with quarterbacks. Measurements are really important, especially towards the top. And there's a lot of money. But to that point, he still will be one of the first 3 pass rushers taken. And he's a guy that I think can play on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down situationally in the whole 9 yards. That's why I still think he'll go in the top 15, because at that point, if you get below 15, it changes a little bit. Some teams will take a chance on a guy that's predominantly a pass rusher. And Jared Verse is very good at that. But they want every down players if they're in top 15, and I get it. He can hold the point of attack, or he can push a guy back. Remember when he took the Florida offensive lineman and threw him into the quarterback? Literally, Jared Verse can do that. I think he's a guy that can play on 1st and 10 in the NFL as a strong side end. And if you want him to, just saying, he can still be a weak side end at 250-something, 260, right in that range. He's perfect. Could he play in a 3-4? Yes. Could he play in a 4-3? Absolutely. So I think Jared Verse is about as well-rounded a defensive lineman as there is in the 2024 NFL draft. I'm not saying that he's perfect, but I think he's a really good player and then one that would be well-deserved to go in the top 10. We'll talk about more players going in the NFL draft here in just a second on Locked On Seminoles. I'm sure you've heard of Monopoly, played Monopoly, and you've probably had a Monopoly board somewhere around you at some point recently, if it's not even in your own house. Well, now it's something that you can use right on your phone. You can download it. It's called Monopoly Go. It's actually been downloaded 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in all kinds of locations, building up amazing cities and winning a lot of big money. The other part of it is you can have fun with your friends, compete with them. You're going to be playing with iconic properties and change the rents. You can rob the vaults or heist the vaults on these things, have a blast with it, and you can do it from your phone. It's really kind of cool. You can also find different ways to play with a bunch of people, or you can do it with just a couple. It's up to you. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Also, you have an opportunity to play Gametime. Use that app as well. If you want to get last-minute ticket deals, if you're like me and you make decisions late to go, it's a great way to go with it. And you can also get the best deals with MLB. Gametime is now authorized the marketplace for Major League Baseball, making it easier to get tickets, even last-minute deals, faster and easier. Prices for the Gametime app with this actually go down as it gets closer to first pitch in a Major League Baseball game, so that's great. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, so you see the price up front, no hidden fees, and you can see your seat. This is my personal favorite part. You can click on the seat that you are interested in, and you can see where you're going to be all the way to home plate right there on your cell phone. So make sure you check out Gametime. This is the deal. Just take the guesswork out of it from buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets guaranteed. Another guy that's got a chance possibly to even go in the first round is Braden Fisk. He's a guy that really graded out well at the combine in terms of speed. He was one of the elite guys in like the 20, the 40, etc. And he's a guy that's got all the measurements that you're looking for in terms of getting to the quarterback based on his get off, his vertical, and all those different things. He's a tremendous athlete. Not many D tackles get 6 sacks. That's what Fisk got last year for Florida State. I think he'll go in the second round, maybe just a little bit different than Benson. Him and Benson could go somewhere in the same range, 40 to 50. But I would think he's got a better chance to go in the 30s, early second round, possibly. Just not enough defensive tackles to begin with in the NFL, even if they're a 2-gap guy. Braden Fisk, though, can play in a 4-3, a 3-4, or he could be a supplemental package guy if you're going against teams that like to screen a lot. Like, again, the Dolphins are a nightmare. Nobody likes playing them, and that's why they're good. But you got to have defensive linemen that just chase the ball. Braden Fisk is an all-out player. He's somebody that has the athleticism to get after it in the run game, and he's going to be versatile for you in package. He could play strong side defensive end into 3-4 if that's what you needed him to do. Don't think he'd be a nose guard per se, but he's big enough to play D end into 3-4 and be a pass rusher. Versatility times 100. This is a great football player. He's going to have a long and illustrious career, in my opinion. And he's somebody that a lot of guys are probably going to be mad they didn't take higher in the draft. Again, I think he'll go 30s at the best, but there's a chance he may go a little lower too. If somebody takes him higher than that, I'd love to be wrong because I think he's a really good football player. He can help you in so many ways. But Braden Fisk is one of the best players for the Noles. Speaking of Trey Benson, he could be one of the first 3 running backs to go, maybe even the first. Here's why I like him better than some of the scouts. He will run over guys. Power never goes out of style. He's big enough and strong enough to block. He's over 200 pounds, and he's versatile in the pass game. You could technically line him up in the slot a little bit. You could do some things, and most importantly, he's going to be consistent. He's an every down back. In the NFL, there aren't a lot of those, and I'm not saying he's a one-guy feature back. He'll be in a committee somewhere, but he'll be pretty good. And I think his vision is better than what a lot of people give him credit to. Trey Benson could start some in the NFL. Would not surprise me at all, but he will definitely get a shot. Late third round is as low as I think he'll go. Could go mid-second round. that's more likely projection. So pick 45, something like that is my guess. Keon Coleman. This is arguably the hardest one to pick out. If it's not him, it's Johnny Wilson. We'll talk about him in a second. Here's what I like about Keon, and here are my concerns. Not many 6'3.5" guys can go out there and catch punts and make guys miss. That I know. But not many 6'3.5" guys are going to do punt returns in the NFL, and he played most of last year hurt. That's going to diminish his draft stock, in my opinion. I think some teams will move him down their board because he was banged up. The number one thing they look at in the NFL is straight up, how durable are you? You're a commodity, literally. A lot of guys, and I'm not kidding when I say this, that are up in the booth for these teams, call players by numbers, not names. That is not an exaggeration. That is a fact. That means you're a commodity, nothing more. They want to see you on the field if they're going to invest millions of dollars. So that might hurt him a little bit. I think he might be more of a third-round pick than some people might think. And there could be some wide varieties. He's not a true burner, but he's as good a 50-50 ball guy. I think some of LSU's defensive backs could be reminded of that. And also, I think he's a guy that, quite honestly, will just do the dirty work. He was a pretty good blocker in Florida State. That'll help him. Do I think he's an all-pro? No. But he's an NFL player that's going to be really consistent because he's got incredible hands, will catch the tough passes, could be a good number 2 or number 3 receiver in the NFL and stick around for quite a while. I'm going to say second or third round. I think there's a wide variety of opinions, though, because of his injury. Just depends on who still needs a receiver in that second round, whether or not he goes that early. And who knows, maybe he drops to the fourth round or something. It's wild when guys have a little bit of an injury bug going into their last year of college, like he did. Speaking of banged up, Johnny Wilson was banged up quite a bit last year too, but he's also one of the weirdest guys to try to compare because he's got just such unique measurables. Wingspan is through the roof. I think it was number 1 all-time in the NFL for his position. Just over 230 pounds, 4'5'2", very, very unique skill set. No idea where Johnny's going to go in the draft. He's been hurt a lot. He's constantly been banged on because he doesn't have the greatest concentration. He's got good hands, but that doesn't mean he makes the easy catch. He'll go make the crazy one, then drop the 5-yard slant when he's wide open. That drives NFL teams up a wall. I get it. I'm not saying that's the great news, but it's just reality. If he figures it out, he could be a number 1 in the NFL because he's 6'6.5", and he can run a 4.5. Those guys are hard to find. Johnny Wilson is one of the most unique players in the 2024 NFL draft. I'm completely sold on that point. Will it matter? I really don't know. But at the same time, he's a great athlete. Somebody's going to pick him up wherever it goes. Somewhere between 2nd and 4th round is my guess. But he could fall to the 6th round. It wouldn't shock me either. He didn't run great, and he's been banged up as part of his career. I think that the draft boards for each individual team could look completely different on Johnny Wilson, and that's going to be very difficult, much like Keon, to project where he goes. So good luck to him wherever it's at. Before we go on to the final group, I do want to mention that there's an opportunity for a lot of people to check out something new that we have here at Locked On, in case you didn't know it, and that's Locked On Sports Today. It's a 24-hour streaming service. You can get on YouTube. You can check it out very easily. All you have to do is go on YouTube, or you can get it through Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Also, we're going to be checking out one other thing before we get back, and that's FanDuel. FanDuel is your official partner for all the things you want in terms of NBA, NHL, baseball, for any of your betting needs. It's a great place to bet on every game. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Anything on from slap shots to home runs, to dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's finish up with a few more players here that are going to be going in the draft for the Noles, and they just kind of talk about what its value is to Florida State again, just as a reminder, because I think it's important. Fabian Lovett, he's a guy that was up and down after he came into Florida State, but you can't teach the size. He's 310 plus. He has the ability to change direction and run really well. I think he can get out on screens, and I think he's a guy that can be versatile in the run game too. So again, 3-down versatility. Teams want that because they only have 53 men rosters, and defensive tackle is a position that's just needed. Can't teach the size, can't teach the athleticism, 3-down player. But his draft stock, again, kind of like a couple of the other guys I just talked about, not consistent at all. So where does he go? Does he even get drafted? I think he could be a steal in the 6th or 7th round for somebody because there aren't a lot of D tackles. That's just my opinion on it, but people can take it however they want. That's just how I look. And here is my special today that I'm going to predict plays at least 5 years in the NFL, and that's why I saved him for the last. That's Kalen DeLoach. Again, I know I'm not going over every Florida State player, but this is the last guy I'm going to talk about before wrapping up. If you're looking for a nickel linebacker and one that's good at tackling in space, one that's good at blitzing, remember, Kalen was the guy that had the blitz that lit up Cade Klubnik, dropped the ball, he picked it up and scored. It changed that game in Florida State's season. They probably lose that game if that play doesn't transpire. He's clutch. Not the biggest guy. He's not a 1st and 10 linebacker, and certainly not in a 3-4 defense. But he could be a hybrid. He could be your nickel or dime linebacker. He could be the overhang. You can use him in a bevy of ways. And again, versatility matters. I understand that he's not a 3-down backer. I get it. Not at the NFL level. DeLoach can still help you. And especially if it's a 4-3 team, maybe you find a niche for him, and he's definitely going to play special teams. He will help your roster. I bet he sticks around more than some guys that are in the 2nd and 3rd round. I really do. And probably some first-rounders too. He has a niche and also a chance to grow into a supplemental role with some of these sub-packages or be a backup that plays 5-10 snaps a game at inside linebacker against a team in 2-minute drill or something like that. Kalen DeLoach is a pretty darn good football player, so he should be respected, and I hope he gets drafted. Thank you very much once again for making this your first listen each and every day. Please hit that like button, that notification bell, and subscribe to this Locked On Seminoles podcast. I truly appreciate it. Trying to grow the brand as much as I can. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to talk a little more transfer portal, a little recruiting, more draft, have some more fun here at Locked On Seminoles. So check us out again on Friday. Until then, everybody have a great one. Thank you very much.